Joining us for our Emmys documentary panel right now is James Hernandez from McMillions. James, thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Of course. I loved this crazy story, your documentary. And I know this all started when you were on Reddit 8 years ago when you found this thread. So take us back to that night and how did it all unfold from there?
It's funny, like the thing that I do to just kill time before I fall asleep ended up being a really big project, but that's what it was. It was just doing my usual like cruise through Reddit, laughing at cat videos and reading random articles, and saw the Today I Learned nobody really won the McDonald's Monopoly game. And like most kids who grew up in the 90s, I was absolutely obsessed with that game. I was like convinced I was going to win $1 million. And then even at 16, my first job was at McDonald's. And so that was like alarm bells going off. Really couldn't believe that that's something I didn't hear about before, and looked into it. And I guess in this day and age, you're so used to being able to learn every minute detail about something in 30 seconds if you Google it. There really wasn't that much information about this. So it just lit a fire within me that I had to know as much detail as humanly possible. And it snowballed into a 6-part documentary series on HBO.
Mm. So what was your next step after that? Was it just contacting the FBI and trying to get people to talk about this?
Yeah, it really was at first for the next year or so. I would just do research online and try to figure out as much as I could just from gleaning as much information I could from just general research. And then I really hit a wall. It was like the same article, same information just was regurgitated over and over again. And at that point, I put a Freedom of Information request in with the US government. And that took a little over 3 years to go through. And then in the summer of 2017, that's when that went through. I was able to find out all the FBI agents who worked the case, the federal prosecutor, and reached out to them, reached out to FBI headquarters, asked permission to even work on this whole thing. And all the agents and federal prosecutor Mark Devereaux said this is their favorite case they'd ever worked, and no one had ever contacted them about it. And they'd love to participate in anything. And I was immediately on a plane to Jacksonville to meet all of them in person.
I mean, Doug Matthews especially was dying to talk about this.
Oh man. So the first time I ever talked to Doug was just on the phone. I was talking to Mark Devereaux, and it was the first time I talked to Mark. And maybe 30 minutes into the phone call, Mark's like, you know what? I should loop Doug in. He was one of the case agents on this. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, sounds good. Anybody who's part of this, I'd love to talk to. And as soon as Doug got on the phone, it was like, I immediately knew this guy was just something special. I'm like, when can I come to Jacksonville to see you guys? And at that point, Brian and I had started working together on this. And I told Brian, like, this is something that's really big. I'm just going. Like, I have to go meet these guys and talk in person. And sure enough, they all were just as fascinating in person as they were on the phone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Doug was made for TV, but on the flip side, his partner Rick Dent did not want to be interviewed. But I understand you still were able to talk to him, like, for background.
Yeah, so they were partners. They were really the odd couple. Like, Rick Dent is literally the exact opposite of Doug Matthews, but very brilliant, very thoughtful. And he's retired from the FBI now. And so he's put that part of his life behind him. He's proud of the work that he's done, but he's really dedicated his life to just a new adventure, basically. And so he was definitely open, and we went and met with him and talked for several days for long 3-hour sessions to pick his brain about everything within the case. But when he was an FBI agent, he didn't like the idea that the second people found out he was an agent, that's all they thought about him as. Not Rick Dent the person, it was the FBI agent. So he didn't want people in his new life to know that he was an agent, and now all of a sudden that's back. But he was great to talk to, and we're very appreciative of all the help he's given us.
Mm-hmm. How close were you to getting Gerry Jacobsen, who's the mastermind behind all of this, to talk on camera?
That really, I don't know if I'll ever stop the search for Uncle Jerry, but same with Brian. It's like the great white buffalo. We actually did eventually get to talk to him. It took a while. We basically talked to every possible person that he trusts around him. And our whole viewpoint was this, obviously he did something wrong and there's nothing that he can do to change that. The only thing he could do is apologize. So we always thought that this would be a great time for him to own up to what he's done. And he ended up really, through his greed, ruining major companies, affecting numerous lives, like thousands of people lost their jobs. And so eventually we got to talk to him, but it just, he's the type of person, as you can see in the show, he likes to just put the horse blinders on, and if he doesn't like acknowledge that it's a real thing, then it just isn't a real thing within his bubble.
Mm-hmm. The entire story is just crazy from beginning to end, and just when you think it can't get crazier, it does. Like there's some outrageous twist one after the other, and it involves the Italian mob and everything. And with Uncle Gerry, you're wondering the whole time, how does he pull this off? And it's because like he was accidentally sent these holographic stickers that he was able to like reseal on the winning pieces when he was in the bathroom. And it's like something, if you had like written it in like a narrative film, like no one will ever believe you. So what was like your guys' reactions when like every single revelation was just like, oh my God, like this is just, it lined up perfectly for him, you know?
Yeah, that with him getting the stamps and the holographic stamps accidentally, I remember Brian and I just being blown away by that. We had heard about it early on and read through some transcripts where they mentioned that, but actually hearing it from the FBI agents and understanding what happened, it's crazy, these micro things that can happen in your life that completely change the trajectory of your life. And that's one of those things, is a complete fluke that he was sent those things. But that's part of what really shows the type of person that Gerry Jacobsen is that myself or most people, they would see those and take them to their boss and say, oh, I was sent these on accident. I shouldn't have these. This is part of our security protocol. I should not be seeing these things at all. But Gerry, it was an opportunity for him because he had already done this years earlier with his brother before they started using the holographic seals. And now this was the opportunity to start this up again at a much grander scale. But yes, it is very much if I wrote a script about this and put that in there and I gave it to friends to read, they're like, that's not real. Like, that's just not a believable thing. But that's really what happened.
Mm-hmm. And then you have like Jerry Colombo opening like the Fuzzy Bunny, and then he gets killed after a car accident. Was that a hit? It's just none of this like feels like it should be real.
When we had first seen the footage of the Fuzzy Bunny, because again in the transcripts from the trial, you see that okay, so Gerry Colombo owned a strip club. It really didn't have much detail on it other than he owned a strip club, and you think, okay, very Soprano style. Of course, he has a strip club that's his legit business. But then we met with his brother Frank Colombo, and he had on a VHS tape all of the news coverage saved. That because for him, that was his only way really to see and hear his brother talk, who's been gone for years. And we watched it, and it was just unbelievable. And the fact that Gerry not only did that, got busted for it, and in the middle of this, he's on the news, he's like fighting against the state government to try and keep this Fuzzy Bunny open. And behind all of that, he's doing the McDonald's monopoly scam with Uncle Gerry this whole time. It's like, you would think he would try to keep a low profile, but that's just the type of character, the type of person that Gerry Colombo was.
Mm-hmm. And another kind of crazy twist was no one would say who the informant was who called in with the tip. And then at the end, you just casually find out from, what's her name? Heather Colombo's, yeah. She just casually mentions like who it is. And what was your reaction? Like, did you think like that was real, or was she just like messing with you guys?
The whole informant situation was, that was something that we were just resigned that we would never learn. We'd asked all the FBI agents and the federal prosecutor so many times, and the UC, like we put them in there, they stonewall us every single time. We asked, then it was, okay, well, we'll just ask every person that was involved in this what their theory is on who the informant is, and maybe we can glean some information from that. And then to have Heather just drop that bomb in the middle of the interview, we're blown away. Like, really weren't expecting it. She had really gotten worked up based off of talking about the dynamics within the Colombo family, and said it. And it was definitely one of those moments where, like, we all like looked at each other like, that just happened. And then I had to ask again, like, wait, so what you're like, who is the informant? And she said, sure enough, it was Ma Colombo. And that ride, though, that you go on within the show, that's what we experienced for real. You know, having interviewed Dwight Baker and having his theory, interviewing Lee Casano and her talking about her theory. And after we talked to Lee, we thought, oh, that's it. Like, she's the informant. This is what really happened. And then at the very end, we had interviewed Frank and Heather. That was a huge bomb to drop. And then we were able to corroborate it. Because at first you think, okay, maybe she's just throwing that out there to maybe get revenge on somebody in the family. But sure enough, that was it.
Mm-hmm. Lastly, I understand you're developing something for Doug Matthews. You're trying to do some other project with him. So what's the latest update on that? Because we do need him back on TV.
Doug is he's a superstar now. He talks about not even being able to go to the gym anymore. People walk up to him like, "Aren't you that guy?" And he's like, "Sure." In true Doug form, he's like, "What's gave it away? The size of my forehead." But
he goes to the gym in his gold suit.
yeah, his actually gold shorts that he wears.
Yes.
But yes, we are developing something with him, because if you think about it, this was the first big case that Doug had ever worked as a rookie. And he has now been in the Bureau since the early 2000s. And he's now one of the best, if not the best, agents in the Bureau, and has handled cases that are far beyond the scope of what McMillion's is, all the way to this case where he had to basically bribe Scotland Yard over in London with a case of whiskey to help bust someone that it was on the run out there. So we're definitely working on something with him that takes McMillion's, the fun and interesting tone of McMillion's, yet the ability to be serious, and just takes that to the next level with other cases that he's worked. And it's going to be really fun. He's very excited about it, but I don't know if there's anything that he does that he doesn't get extremely excited about.
He's excited about life. It's a fun meter. Yeah.
He'll call Brian or myself like at 11 at night, our time, and he's 3 hours ahead, and talk till 2 a.m. He's like that all the time.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can't wait to see that. James, thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you back here in a little bit.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.